Welcome to the Diesel Podcast presented by DFC Diesel. Nate, welcome to the Diesel Podcast. I'm looking forward to chatting with you today about Strictly Diesel, what you do at Strictly Diesel, and your background, and then also jump into a common question that we get quite frequently, which is, what should I do to my 6-liter to make it reliable, make it last longer, make it perform a bit better? So I look forward to going through all the different components that are out there on the market, and then the real-world experience that you have with these trucks and get a better idea of what we need to do. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Patrick. It's great to be here. Honestly, this is means a lot. So happy to be here.
Very cool. Well, let's start. Tell me a bit about yourself. Like I know that you do a lot at Strictly Diesel, but for our audience, tell us a bit about your background, what you do there, and then we'll jump into the 6-liter talk.
History means I'm getting older, but anyway, I started in the business in 1990, right after high school. 2005, started Strictly Diesel. 2010, Dennis and I joined, and it's been us two ever since. And it's been good. It's been good. I'm very thankful for Dennis and everything he's capable of. So, when I started in 1990, I was a helper in the shop. Before that, I was pushing paperwork on the service drive. So moved up quick. I was able to go through college, 2-year degree, what they called the asset program down here through Ford. So I got to work on every part of the vehicle that I could: transmission, engine, drivetrain, brakes, interior stuff, which kind of gave me my knowledge going forward after that. So, but basically one day the shop foreman at the Ford dealer I was at told me, "Nate, you're going to work with a diesel guy." And that was where I stuck ever since. So, yeah, it's been. I started with IDIs, definitely hands-on with the Powerstroke when it first came out, and definitely hands-on with the 6-liter too when those came out. So I was still at the dealer 03, 04. So, yeah. We have kind of a joke around the shop that you want to play 7-3 trivia or 6-liter trivia. I've usually got the answer. So, yeah, always a good time.
It's really cool. I asked Dennis on a previous episode why Ford, what drew him to it, and he told us a story about the 7.3 and his interest in it. If you go all the way back to the beginning, and then through your career, what drew you to the brand? Was it anything in particular?
Man, that's a great question. I keep going back to the story where I'm riding with my grandpa to town. I'm from Wisconsin, and I can see the road to the floorboard in a 70s pickup, and I guess that really started it, being on the farm, tractors, diesels, this, that, and the other. Grandpa always had a Ford. He had a newer Ford before we sold the place, and then I came out here and just kind of stuck with it. Ford's always been it for me. It's the easiest way I can explain it. Maybe it was the look of them also. I like the look of Ford trucks all the time. So, yeah, that built Ford tough has always been a good one for me. So
it always interests me to ask that question and then hear the stories behind it, because I've had different phases in my life where I grew up in a family that drove Ford vehicles, and I've said this before on the podcast, like, you're a young adult, you have to be kind of rebellious, or you want to be rebellious, and as your parents, I'm like, well, I'm not going to like Ford vehicles, I'm not going to drive them, and yeah, I go to a different brand, but I've been in this industry for almost 14 years now, and I was telling somebody a story the other day, how through what I do, like with the podcast and talking with people, and I think paying attention more to the automotive industry at large, I've really come to respect Ford as a company and what they do with their innovation and their independence. And it's not even just with diesels, it's with their whole lineup. And so that's been a change in me from being a young kid and saying, well, I'm going to drive a Ram because my dad drives Ford, that kind of stuff, to saying, I really appreciate the approach to it. And I think for me, when it really jumped out was with the 6.7 Powerstroke, when I saw them design and build their own diesel engine and take that on versus some of the outsourcing that happens in other parts of the market. I thought, this is really cool. I need to learn more. I need to pay more attention. And some of the standards, I mean, if we go all the way back to the IDI, the standards they have set in that heavy duty market, from putting a diesel engine in a pickup truck to the OBS to the innovation they've made, it's really kind of cool. So I love chatting with people who have always been fans of, a particular brand and what brought them to it, because I went the complete opposite way, was almost going backwards and then, finding the appreciation for it.
I think where I really got hooked is when they had IDI and went to the Powerstroke. That was so night and day different and so intriguing and so cool that this is actually working. How does this work? I really dived into the 7.3, and I was blessed to work with a guy from International too. I'd have him on the phone maybe once or twice a day during the week. Sometimes 5 days a week I'd talk to him, and he really, really got me trained on what I need to look for, what the problems they were having, this, that, and the other. So it was just so cool to be one-on-one with that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and had a lot of good experience with that.
I want to ask you more about that. I'm really curious about something. So my first time I ever understood they put a diesel engine in a diesel truck, this is dating myself, but it was with the second gen Rams.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about IDIs. I didn't know about the first gen Cummins. I didn't know about the 6.2 GM. So take me back to what it was like at that time when I think most of the market was probably gas trucks, whether it was small block or big block gas engines. And now you have this IDI 6.9 or 7.3, but especially when it switched over to the Powerstroke, what was kind of the feeling like in the marketplace or with enthusiasts or things that you would hear or see at work?
It was exciting. Even with the techs, it was exciting. Look at this truck. Look at how good it runs. No smoke, smooth, great power. That and as the vehicles get newer, the nuances of the interior and everything get better. I know that was hard to say in the OBS trucks, but certainly with the Super Duty, I remember those coming out too. And we had a Ford rep show up with an early '99 at the shop that wasn't it wasn't legal to sell it yet, but they had the experimental version yet. He showed up at the shop with one of those, and the shop stopped. It just everybody's like, "Oh my goodness, we're going to kick some butt with this," And just the excitement around the Super Duty when it came out, night and day again as to what the OBS was doing. So
Yeah.
it was exciting times, and you can kind of relate that to the 6.7 of today. Very similar with common rail and what have you. It's exciting to see how those run and how they work and where they're going, honestly. So,
Hey, Diesel fans, wanted to let you guys know that our friends over at Kershaw Knives have a 40% off MSRP code for you. If you go to kershaw.kaiusa.com, use code TDP2540, you get your 40% off MSRP. It's a great way to save some money, get some cool gear if you're in the market for a new EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house. They've got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, opening mechanisms, handle designs, and their whole lineup is designed to meet any budget that you might have. So we really appreciate them offering that discount code just for Diesel Podcast listeners. So if you're in the market, head on over to kershaw.kaiusa.com, use code TDP2540, and get 40% off MSRP. Yeah. Yeah. I think also, in a way, making it more mainstream. Because like I said, just being a kid or a teenager, it was mostly gas trucks. And I think, I don't know, because I really wasn't paying attention, but I know in like the early mid 2000s, that's when I really started to get into diesel trucks and get the magazines and start paying attention to them and start to see more. But we look at things today in 2025, sometimes diesel trucks are family vehicles. They're more luxurious. They're used for not just at the job site or not just towing. They're used for a lot of different uses. So it's really cool to hear kind of how it started. I'm sure once they, going back to '94 when they put a turbo on them, I'm sure that was a huge thing at that time, going from the non-turbo to turboed.
Yeah, you didn't see bank stuff anymore. You saw the factory turbos on there, and your eyes got big. And oh my goodness, this thing runs without any banks improvements. So yeah, it was quite the deal for sure. And you're mentioning the gas trucks. I think when the Super Duty came out, gas trucks kind of started taking a step back.
Yeah.
Even now today, looking for a '99 Super Duty or 2000 with a V10 in it, it's hard to find. They're out there, but they're hard to find, and those people that have them are holding on to them for other reasons that they're still a viable truck. But definitely diesel took over and when the Super Duty started for sure. So
with see, looking at the 6-liter, if I put myself back into that time frame, I had a friend that bought one that was new, and I had no experience with diesel, and I've mentioned this before as well. That was the first truck that kind of hooked me on what these trucks could do and the aftermarket performance of them, and just it introduced me to diesel. And I fast forward 20 years, I get people every week that will message in or contact us, and they'll say, do a 6 liter episode, more 6 liter content, please. I want to hear more about 6 liters. And I've seen the evolution of, at the time, it was really cool. You had this variable turbo on it. You had, of course, like the Ford pedigree with how they build their trucks. And in the aftermarket, there was a point in time where people would say, well, these issues pop up after X amount of years, and kind of the performance crowd would say, well, if you want to go fast, you need to get a Cummins or you need to get a Duramax. And on that side of it, we've seen that entirely change now to where there's a lot of these trucks that are racing, making tons of power, doing cool stuff. And people are buying them, I don't think, to make race trucks out of them, but they're buying them because they're affordable. The aftermarket support is there. And the most common question that we get, and it's not just specific to the Ford 6 liter, it's really any older truck, is what do I need to do to either keep it reliable or make it reliable? So I thought it'd be great to chat with you because of your experience with Ford, experience in this industry, and talk to us about your opinion of the 2003 to 2007s. What do you think of them professionally? And then from there, we can kind of jump into, what should we do from a reliability or maintenance standpoint, to keep them on the road and keep them running.
Okay. I'm going to do my best with that. So cue me in if I miss something, but still a great truck in my mind. I own two of them. One's a 2-wheel drive, built to go fast. The other's 4-wheel drive and kind of built to do a purpose, Still a very viable truck in my mind. I still see them all over Phoenix area towing, working, what have you. And like you commented earlier, they are daily drivers for the mom and pops that just need to get to the grocery store too. So the nuance of that variable vane was huge back in the day, because again, it kind of drove like a gas engine.
Yeah.
Really no turbo lag. Well, 03 to 04, that was another subject, but 05 to 07, the turbo lag was much improved, and they drove nice and smooth, and yeah, it was a whole nother animal for sure. However, the 6 liter is the first truck that I will tell people on a daily basis here that you're going to need to put 10 to 15 grand into it if you buy it used, which they're all used now, obviously, but you got to look at history of the truck. What did the previous owner do? Did they upgrade in any way? Who did the upgrades? Was it done by someone in his garage, or was it done by a professional shop like ourselves? Don't really see anymore if it's studded that we got to pull the heads back off again. However, we found when we were really going heavy with these years ago, we found that comebacks were happening with the head gasket. We used the black onyx for a long time with great results, and those kind of got a bad rap on the internet all of a sudden. But what we did to keep our good results was we O-ringed the cylinder heads. Once we head studded it and O-ringed it, our rechecks went away. Black onyx head gasket, factory head gasket, whoever's head gasket, it didn't matter. Everything was sealing and doing what it was supposed to. Along with that, doing upgrades to the oil cooler, EGR cooler, EGR valve, if you will, brand new Ford valve. Back in the day was good. Really made a neat truck at that point. Really made a neat truck. Now with our fuel system also, Bold Delete, it cleans up the engine bay even more than what it is. Adds great fuel flow to the heads, which is lacking on a factory setup. Definitely increases reliability with that also. So tuning's come a long way too. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you more of a general question, because I know there's a bit of difference between 03, 04 and the 05 to 07s, but with 20 years on these trucks, and say it's stock, say nobody's done anything to it, maybe someone's going to be the second or third owner of it. You'd mentioned, being prepared for $10,000 to $15,000 that you're going to invest into it. How should we allocate that, or what should we look towards? Because I think the first instinct is, the truck runs, looks good. I want wheels, tires, lift. I want it to, kind of do that. And we can kind of get sidetracked with where we allocate that money. But I think focusing in on, the engine, maybe the transmission, maybe there's other parts of it that we should look at for reliability. How would you say we should approach that $10,000 to $15,000 and spending it wisely?
So great question. In the Phoenix area, I know for a fact that people will think wheels lift tires with the 10 to 15. No, that's above and beyond the 10 to 15. What we do in our shop is we do a 6 liter pre-purchase inspection, if you will, if someone's brand new to the truck. And in that inspection, we're going to look at thickened voltage. We're going to look at charging system voltages. We're going to look at the oil cooler, how it's reacting to the cooling system, and if it's cooling or not. Does it have any upgrades already? Is there nothing done to it? Is it a stock truck? We're doing all these checks to let the customer know, hey, here's where we'd start with this. Yes, some of that 10 to 15 usually goes into front end repairs if it's 4-wheel drive. Arizona, they tend to get beat up a little bit out here. But you mentioned transmission. My shop, we don't see 5R problems. We really don't. I think I've done 3 in the entire time we've been open. And one of those was a rebuilt unit from Suncoast that we had to replace again. So, and that's no ding on Suncoast either. They're a great company, but stuff happens. So transmission, usually I recommend people put a pan on it, make sure the cooling system's right on it. 5R seems to go forever. I know I built mine in my 2-wheel drive, but again, it's because I had to. It was a construction truck, and it was shifting from 2nd to 4th, and it wasn't good. It was ugly, so I had to build it. But usually, that focus of the 10 to 15, I tell people, is on the engine. What are we going to need to do there?
Is it with the fuel injection style, the Huey injection? And I've never owned a 6-liter, so I'm just kind of from the outside looking in. But I think maybe some of the issues people have is how that's regulated electronically. Like we hear about the FICM, we hear about differences between the O3s and the later ones, and maybe some issues that pop up electronically with it. How or what are some upgrades that I should look for as it pertains to the fuel system? And more so not from making power and doing big injectors, but just from keeping it reliable.
Fuel system kind of covers majority of the stuff on that motor. One of the most basic things you can do is get an edge monitor on the truck. And at that point, you're looking at thickened voltages, charging system voltage, oil temps. We can even add a pressure sensor for the fuel system just to make sure that you're doing the proper fuel pressure. That's really where the basis starts if someone wants to learn and understand what their 6-liter is doing. Thickened voltage, I keep bringing that up. That's important. Injectors. 6-liters are good on a cold morning for delayed hard shifts if you're having injector issues. Typically, what I'm seeing here is if you've got 100 to 150 on the truck and it still has original injectors on a cold morning, which is November to February in Phoenix, but on a cold morning, you will go to accelerate. There'll be a lack of smoke, lack of power, and you'll get late delayed shifts from the transmission. That basically tells me the fuel's not being delivered properly. Put a set of injectors in it, and it's like an instant tune-up. Truck runs, smokes a little bit, does how it's supposed to operate, and moves on from there. If we're lucky, we get to upgrade the fuel system on it with our regulated return. That's only going to help improve fuel flow to the injector. But you mentioned fuel system and issues. I think it all starts with the injector on these because they are not a 7.3 injector by any means. They're more fragile. Things happen. I'll just say that. So, and they show their wear over time, kind of like a common rail injector. They do show their wear over time.
I was going to ask you this is going to be a 2-part question, but I'll ask the first one and then lead into the second one after you answer. When it comes to replacing injectors, what do you like? And the reason I ask that is because if I go onto Google and I just type 6-liter injectors, I'm going to get a ton of things that pop up. And I've been seeing more talk recently about the quality of the parts. I think that's always been huge, but for some reason I see more people kind of trending and asking that question. How do I find the right set? So from a professional standpoint, what you do there in the shop, what would you suggest somebody does if they do need injectors? Where should they find them? What shouldn't they do? Like, to me, as an example, something that jumps out is buying them used. And you can save a bit of money, but that can also on the purchase price, but it can end up costing more if they don't work, or you have some other failure that happens. And I think you probably have some great tips for us when it comes to replacing the injectors, how we should do it, where we should look to get them from.
I'll probably get flack for this, but our best injector for the 6-liter is a Ford factory injector. For the longest time early on, the reman ones weren't their weight and salt at all because they were using remanufactured tips, and evidently there was some issues with those. That and the solenoid and the shuttle valve up on top were also remanned or rebuilt, if you will, and those weren't lasting. We cover our repairs with a 336 warranty, so I want to make sure this truck is going to be right when it leaves, and we've had the best luck with Ford injectors. Second after that is Alliant Power. They do a pretty decent job. And we get failures in both over time, but it's not like you got to do a whole nother set because there's a problem with them, you know. As of late, some of the rebuilt or reman stuff, if you will, has come a long way. I'm going to tell someone to contact their local diesel shop and talk about them as far as who they'd recommend at that point. But overall, and I know it's boring, but Ford factory injector is the best way to go with those.
I think, well, people appreciate your insights, the ones you've covered so far and the ones you will get to, because you're seeing tons of these trucks versus an individual. It's just our truck. I only have a sample size of one. And
Right.
I don't know how many dozens you probably see per week, and times every month, times every year. You've seen a lot of them. And so
Right.
people trust your expertise with it. The other part of this question, because of the injection system that my mind goes to, is the oil. It's so crucial in that system.
Yes.
What is your recommendation when it comes to oil changes, oil service, being able to make sure that the fuel system and also the engine is going to be maintained by it? But what's your perspective on the oil side?
On the oil side, we offer, if you got a high mile truck, we offer an oil flush from a company called BG that we run for like 20, 30 minutes in the motor, and then we change the oil. We run a semi-synthetic pretty much 95% of the time in most of these trucks and have really good luck with it. If you're in colder temperatures and what have you, and even myself, I run a full synthetic in my 6-liter. Love the way it operates. And as far as oil change intervals, every 5,000. Again, probably get flack for that, but the cleaner the oil, the better these trucks are going to last and run and do what they're supposed to.
When it comes to the topic of like a synthetic blend, full synthetic, that sort of perspective, how would you guide somebody on that? Because again, I think if I jump onto Google and search, I can find a lot of information, and I'm trying to think price conscious wise, like where am I going to spend a little bit extra? I'm not going to do the lift kit, wheels and tires because I know the things I need to address on this truck. Should I invest more in that synthetic? And if so, what do you notice? And I'm sure that can even extend. I'm sure you've torn down engines in the shop. I'm sure you've seen them with high mileage and maybe conventional versus synthetic blend versus full synthetic. Do you notice much of a difference when you see them kind of, with a ton of mileage, ton of use on them?
There's definitely a different color and tarnish to the parts in the engine if it's been run at extended oil changes and or a base dyno oil, if you will. You can definitely tell when you take care of it too with a full synthetic. There's less tarnish in the motor. There's less debris. It's just cleaner overall. I will say lifter failures can be common on a 6-liter. So again, is that related to intervals? Is that related to dinosaur oil or synthetic? I'd like to think the latter of that, just because again, I don't think the dyno oil takes as good a care of the internals as it could. So as it should. So.
Do you think that oil on we could group 7.3s into this too, but 6-liters, do you think it's more crucial on a Huey system versus once we get into the 6.4, the 6.7, and other common rail engines because of the kind of dual duty that it's asked to do?
Because of the hydraulic component of the injector, yes, definitely it's important. But I will say we recommend 5,000 across the board, 6.4, 6.7, what have you. Just because even on the newer ones, when they go through a regen, we're taxing the oil system with the oil or with the fuel that gets past the rings. during the regen on a 6.7. So not uncommon to see overfull crankcases because they're either idling too much and or I'm talking 6-7 now, but or extended intervals. But definitely on a Huey system with a hydraulic component to it, 5,000 and a good oil is important.
What about the turbo? That's something that there's the fun factor of it and the sound, but there's also the reliability standpoint. And you think of, potentially 20 years on a vehicle. You don't know how it was driven all those 20 years or anything like that. What kind of options do you prefer? Do you like if a turbo replacement's in order?
I'm sorry, I'm boring, but I'm going to go with a factory Borg Warner. It's um, I'm not the turbo guy. I'll be honest with you. I've had my frustrations with bigger, more improved turbos on certain 6 liters, just because there's no replacement for displacement. 7.3 didn't really care when you bolted a ball bearing turbo on it, but yet if you do that to a 6 liter, it tends to lag and smoke and do some different things. All that being said, tuning's huge on a 6 liter when it comes to a different turbo. Fueling is obviously important. You got to make sure you're driving it properly. Um, on the repair side of things, just a note, someone says their variable vane's not working. Okay, well, how's the wiring? These motors are under intense heat just because of where the turbo is located. I have seen quite a few wires melt together basically, and you're not actuating the VGT at that point. So we do quite a bit of overlays as far as wiring straight to the PCM, cover it properly so it does better with the heat. But again, these aren't things you're going to notice unless you're new to the truck and or been driving it for a while and it's not as responsive or whatever. So
Yeah.
Used to be a lot of coking concerns on the vanes for sticking and what have you. That seems to have gone away with the improvements that have been made to these things over the years. Yeah, definitely don't see that like we used to. So
Are there many issues with like the up pipes or the flow from the engine into the turbo to drive it? Do you notice many leaks, cracks, things like that?
exhaust manifolds are common for leaking still to this day. So factory or fun fact with 6 liters, they did not come with exhaust manifold gaskets from the factory. But over time, Ford realized, hey, we got leaks like crazy. We need to sell a exhaust manifold gasket. So I forget when it was, 04 and a quarter maybe, they started selling exhaust manifold gaskets to repair exhaust leaks on 6 liter. Aftermarket caught onto that, obviously. I think to 07, they did not put a gasket on them from the factory. I believe that's true. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but exhaust manifolds by far are what fails the most as far as leaks. These came with a bellowed up pipe already, and there's kind of two sides to it, one that feeds the EGR cooler, and then they both feed the turbo after that. So that was kind of leaps and bounds above what the 7.3 was from the factory. See a bellowed leak every now and then, and there are aftermarket upgrades for those if you're interested, but man, that's something that doesn't seem to be a problem like it used to be on the 7.3. So that's the scoop there anyway. EBP, the sensor, is even more important on a 6 liter because we're using that with mass airflow and the turbo to make it work properly, EGR valve, so on. So if you've got exhaust leaks, the EBP is not giving you the right reading. It all compounds into a truck that doesn't run right. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely does. And I start to think about, we've discussed the fuel side, the injector side, some of the electronics with that system, the turbo, the manifolds. What other components do I need to think about if I get one of these trucks? Where else should I plan on spending part of that 10 to 15?
Cooling system is important. You need to look if you've got a replacement radiator already in the truck. Kind of a sad situation is shops that don't know better will actually bolt in a gasoline radiator, which is about that thick, whereas you want a diesel radiator, which is almost 3 inches thick. So right there, you're losing on the cooling system side if you got that small radiator in place, and they bolt right in. It's kind of silly. So that's one thing we're looking at when we're looking at these trucks. Does it need the right radiator or not? We do sell a fan switch to actuate the electronic cooling fan. Say you're at idle or extended idle, you want AC to work properly. If it flip the switch, it actuates the fan, and you got a fan clutch that's pulling more air to keep the AC cold. It also works for towing and daily driving too. If you're in city traffic or what have you, help keeping the motor from running hot. So the right thermostat is huge on a 6 liter. These started to act more like gasoline vehicles, where if they run cold, you'll see smoke and drivability issues. So a 6 liter likes to be at 190, 195 at all times. That's where it's happiest. Yeah, and then just good hoses, good belt, good water pump. Upgrade the water pump if you want. There's, again, hundreds of options out there. Aftermarket's done a pretty good job with it. So, yeah, the cooling system is definitely somewhere you want to look. And the cooling system does involve the heads, does involve studying. That's all intertwined. If it's not studied yet, it's 20 years old. You've got a winner for sure, but you're looking at doing some work there.
Hey, diesel fans, I wanted to chat with you about diesel fuel. It's something we've talked about a lot on the podcast, and specifically ways that it can lead to a lot of costly repairs. And the main reason that we have these issues is a lack of lubricity. Our friends over at Hot Shot Secrets have developed a formula that boosts performance and then addresses this issue. So whether you have an old truck, new one, something anywhere in between, we all face this issue. Hot Shots EDT is a 6-in-1 formula. It cleans injectors, boosts cetane, and it has 4 times the lubricity as their leading competitor. So it's a great way to be able to stay ahead of the maintenance curve, avoid those costly repairs, and the best part is it does the work for you. So all you do is add it to your regular fuel up schedule, and it's doing all the heavy lifting. So you don't have to worry about some of those issues that just come with diesel fuel anytime we buy it from the pump. If you go to hotshotsecret.com, use code DIESELPOD20. It'll get you 20% off your order. We really appreciate the team and our friends over at Hot Shot Secret offering this discount code just for you guys. So if you're in the market, head on over to their website, use code DIESELPOD20, and get 20% off your order. Okay, when somebody brings in their truck and they're wanting to be proactive with addressing, say, some of the issues that you mentioned, I'll say they don't have the 10 to 15K to spend all up front. They just have, half of it or a third of it. Are there certain ones that just work better in grouping? Like I'm talking from like a labor standpoint and efficiency standpoint that we should do, so that we're kind of protecting our budget in a way. As I think of, if I'm going to do something with the turbo, or the cab's going to be off because I'm doing something, that's a great time to address a lot of different issues that are there versus having to go back. How would you say, or what would be, let's say, like 3 things that if someone wants to focus on reliability and longevity, they should do up front? And this is assuming there's no catastrophic issues taking place right now, or something like that, but they're wanting to be proactive.
So if we're pulling the turbo off, definitely we're recommending an EGR cooler and an oil cooler, whether that be the aftermarket side oil cooler, which is pretty extensive labor. It does add to the list, but we can do also a factory oil cooler to this point. But again, trying to save the customer labor, we're going to have the turbo off. Hey, we can do this while we're in there. It's less labor. People don't understand that, doing an oil cooler on 6 liters is like 8 hours worth of labor. It's not like a 7.3 where it falls off and it's in your hands. That'd be first and foremost there. Injectors, if we're doing injectors, hey, what oil rail upgrades can we do? Standpipes need to be updated. We're going to go in there and try to go in there once to make sure that the customer's taken care of at that point. Again, because we're warranting it for 336, we want to make sure it doesn't come back on us either. So
yeah.
And then the third thing, I guess it goes back to the cooling system, making sure the radiator's right. I'm probably forgetting something here, but in my shop, we're going to do the best job we can to give you what you need when it comes to the 6 liter, and put your money in the right spot too. Yes, it's not every day you get a guy that wants to spend 15 grand just like that. We do get more of the family conscious, need to budget accordingly. Then that's fine. That's fine. 6 liter comes with a lot of education from our writer here and us as a tech. So we want to make sure people know what they have and are ready for the long haul on it, honestly. So
what would you say are mistakes that you see when, say, somebody has either done work to their truck themselves, or maybe it was done somewhere else, or they just inherited it. What are things to avoid, whether it comes to what to upgrade, or maybe what components were chosen, or what's just common that people would see out there for mistakes?
Well, like anything nowadays, make sure it's made in America. So that's the best. Don't buy an Amazon head gasket and expect it to last. For guys doing it on their own, if you're pulling heads off, man, take them to a machine shop, spend the money to get those heads redone and shaved so that you got a good sealing surface. We do have from time to time customers bring us heads so I can O-ring them. Uh, that way we know they're going back together with the right add-on or addition to the head gasket repair. Yeah, try to stay away from cheaper gasket kits. Using the right quality there. Again, Alliant Power, Ford, what have you, is going to be your top items for that for sure. And there are companies out there that sell reseal kits and what have you that are still all those same names. They're just branding it as their own. So you just got to be careful of what you're buying. Did I catch all that question?
Yeah, I think it helps me understand, again, just being price conscious, where I shouldn't try to cut cut costs. And I think also if I'm not doing the work myself, or I guess even if I am, it's my time, is not going in there twice. And so, for me, I would rely on that education, like something like this podcast, or calling you guys up, or stopping by the shop and saying, "Hey, in what order should I do this? What's the best way, to address it?" And staying proactive, because I know these trucks can run really well.
Yes.
There's people I know that have them, and they're not race trucks or anything like that, but they love them. Whether it's a combination of the styling, the capability, the affordability, of parts. Because even at 10 to 15,000, it's still cheaper than buying something newer,
Exactly.
and it's worth investing in. As
You,
far,
you,
go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Your question is as far as what order do we do things in? It honestly depends on what's wrong with the truck, if anything.
Yeah,
If it hasn't been touched yet, okay, we can start here and work forward. Or if they got an oil cooler problem, okay, we got to do this for sure, but it's not studded. Do you want to do any of that while we're in here? And again, that's where it gets expensive. But oh, by the way, you have oil leaks. Well, we have a lower end reseal here at the shop, and we have an upper end reseal, or both. Uh, so is the motor coming out to put an oil pan gasket on it, or a rear cover, or the bed plate gasket is why we pull them. But yeah, what else can we do while the motor's out? At that point, exhaust manifold gaskets, our fuel system, because then it's an easy install. What can we add to it? But yeah, it's hard to put what an order is to do things in, just because every truck's different, and its history is different, and where do you start at that point? So
yeah.
on a per truck basis.
What are some of the more higher mileage 6 liters you've maybe seen in the shop?
300,000, 400,000 now. They're up there. The short block of a 6 liter in my mind, so heads down, so block basically down, I think they're capable of 500,000, no problem. It's from the head gasket up is where you don't know what's going to fail, or what's going to happen, and how many times you got to do it in that 500,000. But again, O-ringing an engine with good tuning and good setup, I truly believe they're a 500,000 mile motor easily.
You had mentioned earlier in the podcast the pre-inspection on the trucks. What are some things, like when you do one, where you would just say, "This is not. I wouldn't go down this road unless I'm prepared to invest, XYZ into it." Because I'm thinking that, if I went to look at one, what would be a huge red flag to me? Or what are some things that maybe it runs, maybe it drives, but this is going to be an expensive repair. So what are some red flags when you're doing a pre-inspection on one of these trucks?
Quick side comment to the pre-inspection there. We have a pre and a post, and usually our pre-inspection is someone who's already bought the truck, so it's too little too late. But anyway, it's kind of funny at that point. But things you're looking at when you're looking to buy a truck, look at the degas bottle. If it's got head gasket issues or an EGR cooler problem, it's very common for those to have, I'll just say, spit on them. There's a residue from coolants, but not the radiator cap. Look for oil in the cooling system. Take that cap off the reservoir. See if there's oil or fuel inside there, because there are issues with the heads that in the oil cooler that can cause fuel and or oil to be in the cooling system. Does it have an aftermarket air intake on it? Does it have an EGT sensor already in the manifold? Did the guy take the tuner out but left the EGT sensor? Has the truck been modified heavily? For that matter, looking at them, does it have a lift and tires on it? What possible concerns with the lift and tires could you be looking at? Does it need tires? Does it need tie rods because the lift has put too much stress on them? Um, and then going down that road too, is there a problem with the trans because it's got a lift kit on it? And the guy treated it accordingly.
Yeah.
So all things to look at when you're looking at a truck. And the biggest thing too is get a road test on it, swing it by someplace and see if there's any codes, or even our shop for that matter. Swing it by here, we'll pull codes if there are any. We'll let you know. And for that matter, you can take an edge monitor pretty much anywhere. So if you have that already, take it with you, see what freaking voltages are and what your oil and coolant temps are running at, and kind of make a judgment from there too.
That's good advice. I wanted to step back a little bit from the 6 liter. I'm sure this will probably still be encompassed in what I'm going to ask you. But as far as the shop itself, the things you guys are working on, what like specialty or focus or what's common that you guys are seeing on a day-to-day basis? I'm sure it's not just 6 liters, it's 6.4s, 6.7s, a bunch of different trucks. But for someone that's in the Phoenix area or around you guys that's curious, what you guys work on, what would you tell them?
We see everything here from week to week, and it kind of make the joke of it's going to be a Ford week or a Dodge week or a Chevy week, because it depends on what kind of vehicles are in the shop. And some weeks we have all three. So for that matter, Nissans too. Every now and then we get one of a 5 liter in here. But we are seeing a lot of emission related repairs right now with the 6.7 Ford and Dodge. We just had 2 turbos blow up on the 16 model year Chevys. So cabs came off on those to put the turbos on. Oil leak repairs, exhaust manifold repairs on 6.7s, again, both Ford and Dodge. We're seeing it all. And then at the same time, I've got oil changes coming in on the daily that we maintain and do an inspection on the truck and let customers know if they need anything or not. So I hope that answered your question. But yeah, we're seeing everything across the board on a daily basis. So
I wanted to ask you because another really common question week to week we get is, and I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm going to ask it anyway, is people will say they haven't bought it yet and they're looking at used, they're not looking at new. They'll say, well, what's the most reliable? Which one has the least amount of issues on it? And so I wanted to ask you so that we have it on the podcast, but for someone where they're not honed in on a particular brand, but they're interested, which one's less maintenance or which one's more reliable? Are they all about the same from your perspective?
Yes, they're all about the same. Now, again, with my Ford background, I always lean towards the Ford first, Dodge second, Chevy's last. Sorry, Chevy guys. It's just the way it is. But I got Chevy guys in my shop, and we go back and forth in fun all the time on that. But they all have their inherent issues. There's a reason why we have a job, is because every one of them has a problem that we're going to see sooner or later. Fuel contamination with DEF, I forgot to mention that. We're seeing quite a few of those too here, where we're doing entire fuel systems on Dodges, Fords, Chevys, because DEF was put into the fuel tank. That could be a whole podcast on its own. But anyway, yeah, they all have their inherent issues. Again, it depends on the week what we're going to see and what we're going to have to do. So
that was kind of the direction, the answer I thought that you would give. I think I've done equally about the same amount of episodes on which trucks have issues. So
one more side comment on that is I tell people, what interior do you like?
Yeah.
Because some guys lean towards the Chevy interior, and I get that. They've leaps and bounds improved on their interior. Some guys like the Dodge interior. I had a 17 Dodge, and I thought that was the cleanest interior ever on a truck. It was just gorgeous. But yeah, I tell people quite a bit. They all put out the same amount of power and torque. So what interior do you like? Base your judgment off that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
that's really good advice. And then they've all come a really long way, I think, with the materials and the design of them. And I thought of another question to ask you because you've seen this evolution in the diesel market from 1990 to now, and a lot of these models roll out over time. And you had mentioned in a few spots liking the Ford OEM parts. And I definitely understand that, whether it's Ford or General Motors or Ram, the engineering, the R&D, the expertise that went into building these trucks, you're able to get, as replacement parts. How have you seen the aftermarket grow from, over this time frame? The quality of it, the options that are out there. Has it gotten substantially better from the early days of getting an aftermarket component to now?
Absolutely, absolutely. I take great pride in what America has done with the aftermarket side of our industry, because it's not just Banks anymore. The Banks isn't the only one that offers anything. The machine work on certain parts now that come from some of our aftermarket suppliers, just incredible, absolutely gorgeous. And the fact that they're improving on a factory part just speaks leaps and bounds as to the effort that goes into this, and knowledge and just technical side of our industry. It's truly amazing to me how good some of these parts are.
It's cool to be able to keep these trucks on the road,
Yes.
for as long as they have, especially with maybe some of the older ones too, like the 7.3 OBS and the options that are out there. People love these trucks, and for a number of different reasons. And to be able to keep them running and capable as well, even from a power torque standpoint, is what you could buy a new truck for in the mid 90s with for horsepower and torque compared to now. You can get those older trucks into that range and do it smart, invest your money wisely, but you can have a really good, strong older truck that is paid for and is efficient and all those sorts of things that we want. So it's really cool from that perspective as well.
I took strictly diesel seriously because back in the day, my kids all went through high school with OBS trucks, and we had our dents and dings and accidents. But the main thing was the kids came out okay, and that kind of proves too to the reliability of these trucks. You're going to withstand a hit and walk away from it. That speaks a lot, which a couple of my kids have done. So the joys of teenagers, but they're all past that now. But still, I take pride in saying that the OBS truck and even the newer Super Duties at this point, that they're just phenomenal. How they can take a hit, keep you safe, and when they're right, just the enjoyment of driving them, it's incrediable.
If you could only personally own one Ford diesel truck, any one they've ever had, which one would you pick?
That's a great question. Uh, this is a multi-layer answer. I have a soft spot for the IDI, and I still get crap for that from Dennis. There's a nuance with those that driving them, it just takes me back. OBS Powerstroke, love those to death too. I'm kind of stuck right now between 6 liter and 7.3 Super Duty. That's where my effort is at lately. So if I'm looking for a truck, it's usually one in that 99 to 07 area. Again, for interior that I think never quits. Overall, the bodies are still in great shape. Yeah, if I'm looking for a truck, it's going to be 9907 at this point. So, because another thing that could be an all-day podcast, but all the vehicles I own currently it's a whole nother subject. But they range in years. I'll just leave it at that. So,
it is a really tough question to answer. Like for me, if I think about it and I look at it visually or aesthetically, so I'm not getting into the mechanical side of it. The 08 to 10 body style is one of my favorites of all time. But then also the 17 plus body style as well. There's just something when I saw those trucks first come out. It's like something just reached inside of me and said, this is the best looking truck that has ever been made by any brand. of any year. And what's really interesting to me talking with enthusiasts is how other model years do that. There's some people where that Ford OBS, the OBS Powerstroke does it for them, or the 6-liter, the 03 to 07s, or just different year ranges. There's like a connection that kind of, I don't know, it just appeals to you. So I thought it'd be cool to ask you that question as a professional that's been in this industry for a long time and seen all these different models that are out there. You know, which one you would look into. And you're right, we could do a whole podcast on IDIs. I get questions about them still. People love them. There's a connection that they have, you know, to that truck and a bunch of different ones. But it was really cool to chat with you today, Nate, and learn more about you, learn more about Strictly Diesel, what you guys are seeing there in the shop, and then things that we should look to do if we are going to get a 6-liter. Maybe we just have one. We're thinking ahead. Ways we should approach the maintenance reliability standpoint. For anyone who's listening to this, maybe they're local to you, they're going to be there, they want to stop in and chat with you guys, or check out the website. You guys have a great website with a lot of different parts on it. How can people connect with you guys?
So we do have 2 websites. Strictly Diesel has all our upgrades and aftermarket side stuff there that we sell on the internet. StrictlyDieselRepair.com is a service side, so you can go there, make an appointment with us, contact us through that, what have you. If you're looking to get a hold of us, our phone number is 623-582-4404, and or sales@strictlydiesel.com. It's going to get to us. We're going to reply. We're going to take care of you. We're going to do the best we can to make sure you get what you need out of your truck. So, yeah, those are all the options there for contacting us.
You guys make it easy.
We try. And then there's Facebook, Instagram. I think we're on Snapchat too. That's over my head, but you know, yeah, definitely through Facebook you can get a hold of us also. So yeah, be sure to like and subscribe there as well.
It was really cool to chat with you today, Nate. We haven't talked before the podcast, and I really enjoyed this one. And I'm going to mark down. I want to do an IDI episode with you. I've never done one on the podcast, and I'd love to be able to talk through those trucks and have the content out there for people who love them, which they do. With 6.9 or 7.3, they love them. Yep. So I'd love to connect in the future and do some more. But I appreciate your time today. It was great to chat with you. I look forward to doing it again.
Patrick, thank you. It meant a lot. Appreciate you, and this is great. Appreciate it a lot.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code TDP2540. It'll get you 40% off MSRP. It's a great way to save some money and get some cool gear if you're in the market for a new EDC knife, something for hunting, fishing, around the job site, around the house. They've got you covered with a bunch of different choices for blade steel, blade shape, different opening mechanisms, handle designs. And their whole lineup's designed to meet any budget that you might have. So if you're in the market, make sure and head on over to Kershaw.kaiusa.com and use code TDP2540 for 40% off MSRP. Also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters, Tyler Lowe in the 23 Diesel, Cutter Up Rob, Robert, all of other Patreon supporters, all of you who subscribe on YouTube and podcast apps. Follow us on social media. We appreciate all your support here in year 9 of the Diesel Podcast and look forward to bringing you more of the content that you want to hear in 2025. Till next time, keep the shiny side up.